In the Cayman Islands, a new urbanist town is coming to life. To design it, a team of visionaries was assembled from around the world. Come on a journey and travel the globe as we meet the designers of Camana Bay.
We're in Philadelphia today to meet Dennis McGlade, the senior partner of Olin Partnership, one of the finest landscape architectural practices in the world. Hi, Dennis.
Hey, Sandy. Welcome to South Philly.
Thank you very much. How are you?
Fine.
Dennis is going to take us to his rooftop gardens, which is situated right in the center of Philadelphia, to explain his philosophy about landscape architecture.
This roof garden, it's helped me realize how important and not that difficult it is to work with climate to make it a lot more comfortable to be out of doors. Philadelphia doesn't necessarily work all that well with its climate. It can be very hot and humid and stifling in the summer, and it really doesn't work to emphasize its prevailing breezes very well. The nice thing about this roof garden is that even on the hottest day, there's usually always a breeze blowing up here. Adding the plant material in horticulture brings that little bit of animation to otherwise static urban space. And so I really got to appreciate the importance of microclimate and how easy it is to sort of manage it.
Right. We wanted the Olin practice, and specifically yourself, involved in Camana Bay.
You know, I remember our interview, and I was impressed that the environment around the building was as important to you as a client as the buildings and the architecture themselves. So we knew we were going to be with a group that understood what we were about.
So, Dennis, you had a fairly complex problem. You had a dry year of 6 months, roughly, in which you had no rain and very little breeze. And then you had 6 months, roughly, of very wet and windy weather. And you had to balance the two out in order to fulfill our request that we kept as many people out of doors as possible using the space.
That's right, that was the challenge.
A big challenge.
The idea was to create a town with social spaces, but social spaces that were designed to work in the special tropical climate of Grand Cayman. We thought that we wanted a walkable community. And so there's street trees for shade. There's the awnings over the buildings so that a visitor walking down the street will be in shade. If it's raining, they can take refuge under the awnings as well. As you know, the orientation works with the prevailing breezes. It's a straight shot down from the major canal and ventilates the entire town center. It's nice when you go to Grand Cayman, winter and summer, you see people out of doors using the spaces. So it's gratifying. It seems to be working.
So, Dennis, what were the social challenges for the creation of the town centre?
We wanted to create urban spaces that would be conducive for their being inhabited all day. We wanted green, open spaces. We wanted courtyards. We wanted a version of a public piazza, something that you'd find in Italy. But they have to be modified to the Cayman climate, and that's what we did on the Crescent. We have this lawn, which is cool to run on in your bare feet, particularly if you're a kid. It has a grove of palm trees for continuous shade. So people, even on a hot day, will feel cool and it'll be comfortable. And so the idea of taking what we think of as traditional public spaces, a street or a courtyard, and making them work in the climate of Camana Bay so that we bring people into them 12 months of the year, 24 hours a day to the extent we can, was the challenge that we wanted to meet. In spite of being how many years old, not that many, it seemed to be getting a diversity of population very, very quickly in a very nice way.
Yeah.
It's very gratifying. It's rewarding to see.
Dennis, the climate in the Cayman Islands is pretty tough. Walk us through some of the problems that you had with plant material.
In a climate like Cayman, you want the breeze for human comfort, but the salt that the wind carries is very, very stressful, except for the most hardy plants. So one of the challenges was using plant material that was acclimatized particularly to Cayman. Your work in the nursery, propagating native plants which had never been propagated before and using them in a horticultural way in gardens was really groundbreaking, not just for Grand Cayman, but I think in the Caribbean. We used some of the native stuff in Botanic Way. This long transect of native plants that really transforms a very traditional boulevard scheme of traffic lanes with an island in the middle into this botanical garden of the plant communities one meets when one crosses Grand Cayman from the Caribbean Sea to the other, from beachfront of sand dunes and coconut palms and railroad vine to dry rocky, wet rocky mangrove.
Just behind the crescent, we have beautiful gardens that you designed.
The things which the courtyard enabled us to do is that we could use more tender plants in those areas and make them more garden-esque, and they could become more botanically diverse. But that sort of also comes back to my idea of having my roof garden, the idea of having a very horticultural expression in the middle of the city. It's kind of a illogical and a non sequitur in some way, but the contrast gaining is quite wonderful if you can pull it off.